So there's a bunch of people in here. How is everybody's weeks going so far? I put a post up this morning, at least this morning here, and there have been a lot of people having lots of holy shifts, but drop a comment. What's one great thing that happened this week? Doesn't have to be a long comment, just one sentence. What's something good that happened this week? Maybe you're able to do one more thing. Maybe you got to do something for a bit longer. Maybe you went out. Let's see some wins here. Let's see what people got going on. Las Vegas. Cool, yeah, let's dive right into it. We got 9 people on here. So we have Lisa, was able to tolerate laying in a sunbeam. That's great. Vitamin D is great. And the thing with all of this, the reason why I always post those reminders, Monday, every week, I post something, Motivation Monday. What are you gonna focus on this week? And then at the end of the week, it's Friday wins. It's holy shifts. What's something great that happened this week? Because this whole process of healing and recovering, you got to see it as a long-term thing, but you're taking it week by week. But you have this long-term vision, this end goal, but you want to focus on doing the right things week to week. And while it can seem like time is going so slow because you can't do a lot of stuff, you have to really limit your activity, even though the days and weeks go by very slowly, the months actually go by very quickly, which is, it's pretty interesting. It's almost like you're in a time chamber. So if you just stick to the good habits and continue with the good habits, like you will slowly start to see things shifting, and the more shifts you have and the better things get, the easier it is. So when you are at the beginning of your recovery, that is actually when it's the hardest. So if you are like kind of in the hole right now, we're all in different places in the recovery, but as you get better and better, things get easier. So in the beginning is the absolute hardest. And I harp on that all the time in my YouTube videos. Okay, let's jump right into the questions here. We had a question, someone posted it before the live call. She couldn't make it, it's a different time zone, but she was asking about overcoming anxiety around trying new things. And she writes, how do you suggest I get over it? I used to be able to go to the mall with no problems, but now every time I go to the mall, I feel like bad things are gonna happen. How do I work around the fear for doing activities that I now want to begin reintegrating into my life? I know my body is physically ready for it, but the fear of it keeps me from doing it. And that's huge. So here we have somebody, she feels like her body is physically ready for all this stuff, but mentally it's not on the same page. She's afraid that she's gonna overpush and end up, putting herself in a worse position by going backwards if she does too much. So basically, her mind, it doesn't trust her body yet. And when we're recovering, we wanna rebuild that trust with the body, and vice versa, your body needs to learn to trust you. So we're kind of rebuilding that relationship, the way our brain communicates with our body. And it's kind of like exposure therapy, right? So that's why we want to slowly increase activities little by little, and that's a sure way that you won't crash or end up going backwards. If you increase it little by little, there's no way you're going to go backwards. It doesn't make sense. Unless you're in a state where you're like completely stuck in bed and you're stuck in that kind of downward spiral, that's a different story. But if you're able to kind of walk around throughout the day and do somewhat regular activity, you're able to walk to the washroom, take a shower, cook some food, do the laundry. If you're able to do those basic things, then if you expand your activity just a little bit, say you go for a walk outside, you should be okay. But of course you have to kind of gauge it of where you're at and how you're feeling. But that's a sure way to know that you won't be going backwards. If you only expand it like 5 or 10%, your activity, there's no way you're gonna go backwards. So that's how to get over the anxiety and the uncertainty, if that makes sense. Amanda, my question is, what is the main brain retraining you did? I did with a ton of fatigue and body burning. Can you just explain how you incorporated the training into your day? Yeah, absolutely. So the brain retraining exercise that I did, it was very simple. It was pretty much 4 steps. And I would do this throughout the day. Pretty much anytime my symptoms would get to the point of being annoying and they would really bother me, then I would do them. So in the beginning, it was throughout the day quite a bit. So I was doing it for probably an hour total every day for the first like few weeks. But each time I would do it, I only do it for maybe 5 minutes at a time or 10 minutes at a time. But essentially you're imagining the pain centers in your brain glowing, and this is specifically for chronic pain symptoms. This is not for the fatigue, and I'll touch on that in a little bit after, but for the chronic pain, you want to connect your brain centers in your brain with the pain you're feeling in your body, expand those areas, see them glowing red hot, and then see them kind of dimming out. And then the pain will start to slowly go down. You want to associate that pain with that glow, and then you do this in your brain, that you're imagining these pain centers glowing, then dimming down, glowing a little bit, dimming down, glowing less, dimming down, until you feel as little pain as possible. In the beginning though, you won't see results for probably the first week or two, to be honest. And that's something you have to expect, but you got to stick with it. But I actually created a brain retraining guide for chronic pain that I'm releasing, Friday today? So sometime mid next week. It's going to be on the new website. Very simple. It breaks it down to 4 very simple steps, so that way you can save it on your phone, carry it around with you throughout the day, and it makes it super easy. But I made a couple videos on brain retraining. I would suggest go watching those because I go into detail, and I have also brain retraining video coming out next week as well. Hope that answers your question, Amanda. Erica, what did a typical day look like for you when you first got home from the hospital and still were pretty limited? How much time was spent visualizing, resting, trying to do activity, interacting with family, etc.? I know it's different for everyone, but I just don't know generally how much each of it takes. Great question. So I get out of the hospital. When I got out of the hospital, I wasn't completely normal yet. Like I had just moved from a walker to being able to walk around. So I was at like maybe 300 steps a day. Let's say 250 steps a day. I wore a Fitbit as soon as I got out of the hospital. And yeah, I would sleep in every day for the first few weeks. I still had a lot of symptoms. The main thing was the burning sensation all over my body and the fatigue, of course. But for me, I didn't try to force myself or push myself to do anything. I was just happy to be out of the hospital back into the normal world. So that's one of the things, when you hit rock bottom, everything else you do is like 1 step better and like 2 steps better, 3 steps better. So it was kind of a blessing in disguise for me that I was that bad shape. I was in that bad of shape when I was sick, because then I was able to appreciate everything else. But I would spend a lot of time just sitting on the couch, sitting outside on my phone, listening to podcasts. A lot of it was spent getting fresh air outside, but really having no set schedule, just kind of listening to my body, going by how I feel, and constantly doing the brain retraining exercises. So there wasn't really any specific schedule. It was just, there was that certainty in my mind that, okay, I am now on the path to recovery. It's almost as if I got on a train and the train was now moving in the right direction, and I just had to stay on for the ride. As long as I didn't kind of screw up and try to go for a run or try to overdo it, there was no reason to overdo it, because I understood that, okay, this is going to be step by step. This is not going away in a few months. It'll probably be like 6 months to a year. And once I accepted that, then I didn't put myself in positions to stress out too much or overdo it. But yeah, I interacted with family, friends, stayed home most of that time. A lot of friends would visit me, or I would go out and just kind of hang out at a park with them or something. Question, I can spend just 30 minutes per day out of bed, so trying to slowly increase movement and trying to get up more. But the fear of crashing is real. Suggestions, I retrain the fear every time it comes up. Yeah, so Lisa, if you can spend just 30 minutes per day out of bed, what you have to do, since you can only work on so much physically, there's a lot of internal work you're gonna have to do. So it's the brain retraining for the chronic pain, but also really taking inventory of the stressors you have. And there's a lot of hidden stress with something like CFS. When you're bedridden, when you can't do a lot of stuff that you're used to doing, the internal stress, mental and emotional, a lot of times can be worse than the physical stress. You're experiencing you're not putting that much physical stress on your body. If you think about it, it's not like you're going for runs or straining your body physically, But mentally and emotionally, you have to take inventory and look at, okay, what are the things that stress me out? What are the things I'm worrying about? What are the things I'm anxious about? And I'm going to talk about it later, but I'm launching a recovery jumpstart program, but 6 weeks long. The first week, it's all about the mindset, like creating that mind shift and going back and looking at, okay, what are the things that are holding you back right now? What are the things holding people back? Because if we don't solve those, there's no way we're going to be able to move forward. Like, we can try doing all the right things, have all the right habits, but if we don't figure out these limiting beliefs and change these patterns, then we're always going to end up in the same place. But I'll chat about that towards the end of this call. But I would really seriously write down and look at what is going on internally, emotionally, spiritually, mentally, what's stressing you out, what are your fears, what are your anxieties, what are your worries, and we need to try to fix those in order to relieve the stress on your nervous system. Jafet, how much does built-up trauma play in impact of not allowing our body to fully heal? Oh man, it plays a lot, and it keeps you stuck. That's the thing, trauma will keep you stuck. And it can be trauma from early childhood or things like that. For me, it was trauma from like PTSD, the things I experienced when I got sick, the amount of times I had to go to the hospital, the amount of times I thought I was gonna die, that I thought I was taking my last breath because I was so exhausted I could barely breathe. Those fears kept me stuck because I didn't believe recovery was possible, and I thought I was just a shell of a human being. And I saw myself as very fragile. And the more trauma we have and things like PTSD, things like that, it makes us get stuck. And then we create this image of ourselves that we're fragile, like I said. And when we look at ourselves as fragile, we're gonna subconsciously look for proof that we are fragile, if that is our belief. So we need to shift that and really, attack those traumas. I don't want to say attack, we need to handle those up front. Like, we don't want to push them aside or put them under the rug or anything like that. We want to face them head on, so that way we know what's holding us back and we've got to deal with them. And this is where journaling can come in handy. If you can't journal, then use a dictation tool on your phone and then go into notes and then just talk to it. You just need to get out of your head, because there are a lot of internal things that can be holding you back. Peggy, as I move forward, I am taking longer naps, not because my body is tired, but because my brain has had enough. Should I be slowing down? Does this happen to others? This seems strange. It's like when a baby can fall asleep in the middle of a huge family event. Depends, but I actually experienced that quite a bit. As I was expanding my activity, I was also being faced with these adjustment periods. And during these adjustment periods, I would have to really pull back the activities for 2 or 3 days, and I'd be napping, a good 12 hours a night and maybe an hour or two through the day. Pretty fatigued, lots of burning sensations on my body, but I knew and understood, okay, this is an adjustment period. It's literally part of the recovery process. There's no way you're gonna avoid it. It's just like working out. If you work out, you get sore, but that's how you build muscle. So for people trying to avoid symptoms or trying to not feel any symptoms on the way to recovery is like someone trying to gain 10 pounds of muscle without feeling sore, if you think of it that way. It's just impossible, because it's literally part of the process. It's how you retrain the nervous system, which actually it's a good analogy. I'll probably make a video on that, how expecting to recover without experiencing symptoms is like trying to gain 10 pounds of muscle without feeling sore. But yeah, if you're able to rest for 2 or 3 days and then come back even better or similar, then continue what you're doing. You just want to make sure that every time you do get better, usually the adjustment periods last anywhere from a week to 2 weeks, sometimes less. But for me, I've had them last for up to 2 weeks. Every time those adjustment periods are over, you want to be better. And if you're not better, then that's how you know you're overdoing it a little bit. Lisa, do you meditate? Did I meditate? Not so much. Well, I guess I did, because my meditation was visualizing the future, visualizing the dream life I wanted, what I want to do, have, where I want to travel to, the experiences I want to have. So that was my kind of form of meditation. I'm a very visual person, but I would never just sit there and try to like clear my mind and think about nothing. I have done it in the past, but I just do a lot better when I'm visualizing things. Erica, interacting with humans makes me feel good. Social engagement is a cue of safety for me. Shouldn't doing that as often as possible help me stay in parasympathetic, or should I fear dipping because it takes energy to socialize? Yeah, interacting with humans is great. If it stimulates your parasympathetic nervous system and calms you, that's a great thing. But on the other hand, you also have to look at it as, okay, is this, when you're doing, so you have this problem here, right? Your nervous system is overloaded by certain things. And if you're talking to people, you don't feel those things. The thing is, people are not always going to be around. Like it's not fixing the root cause of it. So as long as in your mind, you're not running away from the problem and being like, okay, I'm going to go distract myself by socializing. And you look at it from a point of, okay, I'm literally retraining my brain to stay calm, and socializing with people as an activity to do that. That's the better way to approach it. Like with me, everything I was doing, going outside, enjoying the sun, staying with friends, it was part of the recovery. All that was part of it. These were like the exercises. So for a person going to the gym trying to gain muscle, they'll do curls and squats and push-ups as the exercises to get their body to adjust and to cause stimulus on their body. For people like us, yeah, it's things like socializing with people, but there's a higher purpose. You're doing that in order to get your body to calm down. Yeah, I don't know if that answers your question. If it doesn't, then just comment again and I could go deeper into it. Essentially, you want to see it as a bigger purpose than just socializing. You want to see it as almost like the training ground for your nervous system. I typically don't have issues with pain. It's more like the discomfort when having the flu. Is this the type of pain you're referring to? If not, my main symptoms are fatigue, post-exertional malaise, or orthostatic intolerance. Any brain retraining for these? When you have post-exertional malaise, that's when you feel sick and things like that. When you feel sick, if you have the flu, then you're aching, right? I would assume you're aching or feeling some sort of pain. So could you just clarify that, Beth? Thank you. Amanda, would you say your pain and fatigue recovered by 100%? 100% as in like, okay, it completely went away? Yeah, if that's the question, then yes, it completely went away. For it to 100% completely go away, it took 3 years. Yeah, 3 years. Keep in mind, I was able to exercise and go for short runs like 2 years in. I was able to hike up a mountain in Hawaii a year after getting out of the hospital. But if you're asking like when they completely 100% go away, yeah, it was about 3 years. That's when I could do sprints. I could, pull all-nighters for work. I could have tons of stress on my body and I wouldn't feel any symptoms. But yeah, now it's all good. Hey Miguel, physically I'm quite all right, but I have great cognitive problems which prevent me from doing simple tasks. The brain fog and disorientation leads me to being dependent on help from others to organize my tasks. Thus, many tasks make me anxious and stress me out. How should I deal with it? Did you have these symptoms? Yeah, so if the tasks are stressing you out, like what are the tasks? Are they absolutely essential? Because if they are essential, then you just have to reframe the way you look at them. The brain fog and disorientation leads me to being dependent on help from others, and which is totally okay. But if you're at that stage, then it could be that you're doing too much. If you're needing help with stuff, you want to be able to do stuff yourself if you can, or just really start lowering your activity. You might be trying to expand too quick. You don't want to expand when there's too much brain fog or disorientation. So Lisa says, I agree with you about that. If we avoid symptoms completely, we will make slow or no progress. Yeah, that's right. So yeah, we just want to really tie those two together. If we're interacting with people as a way to get away and run away from those feelings and not feel all that stuff, then that would be the wrong way to go about it, because now you're like avoiding the problem. And the more you avoid it, the more you're going to be anxious to feel it come up, the symptoms, things like that. Whereas if we're doing it for a higher purpose, like, okay, we're going to go socialize, we're going to do all this stuff, not to run away from the problem, but to fix the problem, because we know that this is going to help the symptoms. So you want to have that ultimate goal and that understanding of, okay, when we feel somewhat okay, when the mindset is right and we do the brain retraining and we lower the internal mental stress on our body and our nervous system, we're able to expand physically. But it usually starts internally, because you got to figure out what caused you to get here in the first place. A lot of times it's limiting beliefs, habits. For many people, it's because they overdid it. Too much work, too little sleep, and they just wanted to be the best. Or they always had to be busy. They always had to be doing something. And if they try to keep that up moving forward in their recovery, then they're just going to end up back in the same place. So that is the root cause of it. So we need to go back and figure out the root cause of what's causing these things. Erica, it just seems like the key to healing is all this positive thinking and visualization and resting, which are all ways we are avoiding fight or flight. So socializing with my mom or a close friend makes my heart rate low and makes me smile and feel safe. Shouldn't that get me closer to healing, or will it cause a dip because it's a form of mental exertion? Even like going to my nephew's soccer game makes me feel good, but isn't it overexertion? Well, it's very subjective. I don't know your exact situation, so you'd have to tell me. Like, how do you feel after that? Does it cause a dip? Because I'm not sure of your specific situation. So like when you socialize with people afterwards, do you feel worse? If you go to soccer games, does it feel worse? If it doesn't make you feel worse, longer term, like it might make you feel some symptoms for a few days, maybe a week, but if you're able to bounce back from that and get even better, and that really comes down to handling the symptoms properly and not getting over anxious about it or kind of freaking out when the symptoms come, because they will come. If you're able to bounce back from that, then it's okay, because that's one of those adjustment periods. It's one of those kind of exercises along the path to recovery that allows your body to adjust. It stimulates your body. Your body has this adjustment period. You handle the symptoms, you become stronger because of it, and you're correcting your nervous system. You're literally retraining your nervous system and your brain how to react to things. You're teaching. Hi Miguel, thank you for doing this. Did you rewire your fatigue symptoms, and if so, how? I'm pretty good at managing my other symptoms, but the fatigue is hard. I struggle finding a good way to rewire it. Trying to think that I'm not so fatigued, but think this is not so helpful. Great question. When it comes to fatigue, at least in my experience, I found that there's no way I could control the fatigue mentally. I couldn't just think my way through fatigue. I just had to kind of roll with it, accept it. I'm like, okay, my body's in adjustment period. We need to give it time to build back up again. But here's what you have to understand. Your fatigue is secondary to the symptoms for a lot of people. Usually, so when you get bad, you're feeling lots of pain and lots of fatigue, normally you have to fix the pain first, the symptoms first, the headaches, body aches, pains, things like that, the anxiety, and those all take a toll on your nervous system. Pain takes a toll on your nervous system. It stresses your body out. Once you start removing those stresses from your body, both the mental stress and emotional stress and the chronic pain, then the fatigue starts to go away. And that was my experience. That's what happened with me. The fatigue was secondary to the pain. As soon as the pain started getting lower and I felt more in control, then I started noticing differences in my pain levels, then the fatigue also started to go away. So I would focus on the symptoms first, handling that, as well as handling, the emotions and the mindset, and really making that mind shift to believe that recovery, first of all, you have to believe recovery is possible. If you don't have that, if you're still something in your mind like that's saying, will I ever get better? That's a telltale sign that you're not fully bought into the recovery path. And that's why mindset is so huge. If you have that thought, that doubt, that will I ever get better, then it's going to be almost impossible to recover. Now, a different thing to ask yourself. It's when will I recover? That's a better thing to ask. Will it take 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years? It shouldn't take that long. There's ways to do it in a couple of years to really live a life that's better than where you were before you got sick. But yeah, I forgot where I think I just went on a tangent there. Peggy, I have sensations most days, either good tingles, burning, or prickles. And yeah, I used to get that all the time, the burning and prickles. Hated those. If I wait until I have no sensations, I wouldn't be able to do anything. Just walking, music, hugs, just about any activity will cause a sensation either immediately or hours later. I wake up around 3 a.m. almost every night with burning all over my body, even with good sleep. Okay to have some action going on somewhere in the body all the time. Yep, that's okay. For me, I had symptoms 24/7 for the first 2 months out of the hospital, a month and a half. But as long as you're handling them and doing the brain training exercises and pulling back when it gets, to that point of where your body just like screaming at you, telling you it needs to rest, then just pull back. But yeah, I had lingering symptoms for about 6 to 8 weeks after the hospital. My problems come from severe CPTSD, which I'm working on with a therapist, so I have that going on in the background whenever the little ones decide they don't want me to do anything. I hope this makes sense to you. Yeah, that makes sense. And it can be scary when you're doing activities while you have symptoms, but you just want to make sure the activities you do aren't intense. You want to make sure they're low intensity, they're not too stimulating, right? Especially in the beginning when your body's more sensitive. We almost want to think about it like you're massaging the nervous system. You need to slowly introduce low intensity tasks, either physically or mentally or emotionally. You don't want any drastic changes in any form to your body. Erica says, I don't think I understand my own patterns yet. I've had the chronic fatigue only a month, trying to avoid getting to a place of not leaving bed like a lot of people. Okay, so Erica, if you've had chronic fatigue for only a month, the thing is, it's hard to tell when it starts, when it really starts, because normally it's like a buildup of some symptoms that over time get worse and worse. So it's kind of like a gray area of when it actually starts. Yeah, it's hard to tell. But if you're fairly new to this illness, you haven't had it for a long time, and it's only really been debilitating for about a month, then you're not so far into the hole that you won't need to take drastic measures. So for you, it's just a matter of tweaking that ship in the right direction. I had a video where I talk about recovery is like trying to turn around a cruise ship. It's very slow, takes a lot of energy, a lot of effort, a lot of focus. For you, the ship hasn't turned around completely yet. You're not so far in the hole. You're in a better position than a lot of people. But on the other hand, a lot of people continue to go down the hole because it's not bad enough for them to make a lasting change. But it's great you're in this group, because that tells me that you really want to get better. And you're ready to change. What was your process directly after an activity that exacerbated your symptoms? Would you stop immediately and retrain your brain? Yeah, exactly. So there were times where I would be in a mall and I was with my girlfriend. We'd walk around the mall, she'd go into some store, and then I'm feeling burning in my body and some kind of headaches and brain fog, things like that. Not a horrible headache, but more so burning. I would have to sit down and just close my eyes and do that brain retraining for like a good 5 minutes. Yeah. In the beginning, I remember it was like 2 or 3 weeks out of the hospital. I just sat down and felt like a zombie. But yeah, as long as you're adjusting and listening to your body, not ignoring it. You don't want to ignore it and push through it. You never want to push through it. You can do things with symptoms, but never push past the symptoms and try to continue to do more. I'm doing the Dr. Sarno reflections for 20 minutes every morning and rewiring negative thoughts during the day. I have severe FM. Should I be slowly expanding my physical activity? My solar plexus area is in spasm 24/7. Nothing makes me feel any better. I have been ill for 22 years and have gotten rid of all my other symptoms, including fatigue. I've been ill for 24 years. Okay, so you gotten rid of all your symptoms. That's great. That's awesome. Yeah, so yeah, if you're not having symptoms, I've been ill for 22 years and have gotten rid of all my other symptoms, including fatigue. So you only have the solar plexus area spasm. Yeah, if you gotten rid of all the other symptoms, then I would say slowly start, I was going to say shifting, but not shifting, introducing light activity into the body. So I'm not sure what your activity level is at, but yeah, I would start trying to expand it. Like I said, I don't know exactly where you're at, but go outside once per day or walk around a little bit more. We'd have to really look at what your level is at. For me, in the beginning, my expansion of activity was literally me getting into a wheelchair just by my bed, sitting into it, then rolling down to talk to a bunch of other people in the hospital, then going back to my bed. So it really depends where you're at, but very slowly. The mindset shift is huge. I worked on that for 7 months. I was in a very bad place. I still cannot speak, but I know I will recover. Yeah. I find that when I'm better, I fully believe I will heal. But when I'm worse and my symptoms are stronger, the doubt creeps in. Any advice on how to shift the mindset in those situations? Great question. Yes. When things are great, it's very easy to believe that you will be better, that you'll be fine, that things are going to work out in the end, just like anything in life. And when things are harder, more symptoms, more pain, more fatigue, the doubt does start to creep in. And I had that so many times as well. So this is where it's good to have a support system around you. For me, I'm lucky I had my doctor, but I would see him like every 3 months. So it was actually my girlfriend. So everything my doctor taught me, I showed my girlfriend. And every time I was in a dip or an adjustment period, I would have doubts. I would ask her, like, do you think I'm actually going to go back to square one? Do you think I'm crashing? And she'd be like, no, that's just in your head. And like, I noticed a pattern. Every time I dipped, I would have the same doubts creep in, and it's perfectly normal. But you want to have that support system that says, no, you're going to be good. Remember, you knew these adjustment periods were coming. You knew that you would feel symptoms, and you knew you would have to deal with these adjustment periods. So right now, it's just because you're in the thick of it that you're having this doubt. But remove all these symptoms, you're going to be like, okay, yeah, that was all part of the plan. So I think understanding the path to recovery before you even get started on this journey is so important, because now you can anticipate and expect things, and you can predict these things. The biggest thing for me when I wasn't getting better and I was stuck, that gave me so much worry and anxiety and sadness and doubt, was the fact that there was no proven recovery path. That I didn't know if my body was just going to shut down the next week. I didn't know if it was just going to magically start to fix itself. But once I discovered like there's an actual proven scientific path to recovery, I was like, okay, let me be all in on this. And I just trust the process, because if it worked for hundreds of other people, then it will work for me. And it wasn't a step-by-step process, but it was frameworks that my doctor taught me. And that's something I want to talk about on this call here. Is I learned with that doctor for hours, almost every single day for an entire month, face to face. He had a whiteboard. He was teaching me these things. And I was 100% focused on getting out of the hole, getting out of the wheelchair, out of the walker, getting back to my life. I was just happy to get back into my life again. And so I had that support system, but I also had lots of time to go in depth on a lot of these topics. So over the past 3 years, as I've gotten better, it's always been in the back of my mind that, man, this information needs to get out there. So I had to figure out a way to share all that knowledge to people in an organized place, an organized process that, one, makes sense, two, has actionable items that people can follow, and three, that simplifies the entire process of recovery. So I've been working on this for a couple months now. And these are ideas, these are from notes that I've written ever since I was in the hospital and as I've been getting better. But I've created a recovery jumpstart program. So recovery jumpstart program, it's a 6-week program. Each week has a different focus, and there's frameworks in each week. We start from the most important, the most foundational things. Week 1 is going to be like mindset. It's going to be interactive, it's going to be engaging, there's going to be homework sheets, activity sheets. And in addition to the videos each week, we'll be doing weekly group coaching calls. So it's not just some online course you sign up for. No, it's like actually engaging. And each week we're making sure we're all helping each other, and I help make sure that you're on the right track. So I can just guide people on the journey, but more importantly, like, you don't have to go through this by yourself. And this 6 weeks is mainly for getting unstuck. Like, you're not gonna have this miracle change in 6 weeks. You're not going to be all of a sudden better, but it's going to get you moving in the right direction. You're going to understand what you need to do to recover. And after the 6 weeks, people will actually have access to the closed group weekly calls that I'll be on to help everybody continue on their recovery path. So they get access to that. And the goal for them is to have them fully recover. So it's a 6-week program, but after that 6 weeks is up, people move into the weekly coaching calls, and we do that every single week. Realistically, I can see people being in that coaching call group for probably about a year until they can kind of go out and just understand what's going on. But that's all included in the Recovery Jumpstart program. So we're only taking 10 people as well. I do have to mention that because I can only work with so many people. It'll be a group setting. We want it to be as engaging as possible, so we have to limit it to the amount of people we can handle. But just to give you an idea, so week 1 it's going to be focused a lot on the mindset, so making the decision to change, reawakening the awareness. There's going to be a lot of exercises. Okay, what have you done so far that led you to this position? And it's letting go of all the habits, or not habits, the guilt or anger or sadness that you have, the regret, because that has to be dealt with right away. That's probably one of the most foundational things. This is going to be, you have to write down all the times you remember pushing and crashing. Write down what you were thinking when you were pushing and crashing or trying to overdo it. Most importantly, write down why you wanted to push. Week 2 is mindset level up. This is where we create a vision, like a North Star for the future that can guide you on the road to recovery. So that way, when things do get hard, you have this vision in your mind and something to focus on. Where do you want to go? What do you want to eat? Where do you want to travel to? We're trying to paint as positive picture as possible. And then it's just committing to recovery. Week 3 is reinforcing change, diving deep into the brain retraining stuff, practicing healthy habits. I think that was week 3. Week 4, continuing to practice healthy habits. So finding stability in your symptoms and fatigue, and practicing patience. Week 5, it's going to be rebuilding your health, so expanding your world, adding in activity, but really remembering to pace yourself. And more things in week 5. And week 6 is the cycle of recovery, because you're going to be bouncing from expanding activities, dealing with adjustment periods, expanding activities, dealing with adjustment periods, expanding, but you're almost like a balloon. You expand activities, contract a little bit to adjust, expand, contract, and I pretty much lay that all out in the Recovery Jumpstart program. So I'm looking to have it go live sometime mid-November. Yeah. The goal is around November 15th, somewhere around there. We'd still need to figure out days, the day we'd want to do it each week, because we want to accommodate for people in different time zones. But that way, if we start mid-November, by 6 weeks, it's going to be January 1st, and you really go into the new year with a real fresh start. That's why it's called the Recovery Jumpstart program. But it's by application as well. So we do have to screen for people, make sure there's no other underlying health problems, because we don't want to tell people like, yeah, we can help you get better if there's something else that's causing it. So yeah, it's for people who have both pain and fatigue. Those are the ideal people for this program. People who can commit to the weekly calls. But I'll be making an announcement about this. It's by application only. There'll be like an interview thing to see if you're even a good fit for the program. If not, then there's tons of content I put out on YouTube that is free and will be very powerful to help people in recovery. So some people can actually recover. There's people who message me, they're already well on their way with the YouTube content. Some people just need a little extra push. For me, yeah, when I go into something, I need to be all in, because I tried watching tons of YouTube videos, but it was missing that accountability piece. Not even accountability, but that like personal support where you get that face-to-face time with people. But yeah, there's more information on that coming very soon. Very soon. You guys have any other questions here? We got about 12 minutes left on the call. Ideally down the road, so my vision for this is to have a catalog of different things, different sections for the different stages of recovery. So let's say someone gets a lot better. They'll know exactly what to do in that stage of recovery during that time. It's okay, here's what to do, here's what not to do, here's what to avoid, things like that. And then let's say they go backwards for some reason or they overdo it. Then there's going to be exactly what to do in that stage. So there'll be like a timeline. Let's say this is the start, it's finished. It's like people will be moving along that timeline, and say they have a setback, like they go back here, there will be a list of things, exactly what to do, and modules and frameworks. Not crazy overwhelming. Like you see my videos, I try to keep it as simple as possible. But yeah, that is the vision for this, to give people the roadmap to recover. But yeah, I hope that helps a lot of people. Do you have any more questions here? Drop a comment live, hashtag live if you're live. Drop a comment, hashtag replay, if this is a replay, if you're watching by replay. Sure, you could type it out, Barbara. But it's pretty cool. I started this Facebook group exactly a month ago, actually. Exactly a month ago. And so far, I think we have 116 people. There's people from the United States, United Kingdom, Germany, England, Sweden, Norway, Australia, Netherlands, Canada, Australia, Austria, and a bunch of other countries. So it's pretty cool how everybody is coming up from around the world for one purpose, and that's to get healthier and get better. How many years into recovery were you able to return to work? I never really returned to work because I was a personal trainer beforehand. Because I couldn't go right back into personal training, I started just filming videos as a hobby. And it turned into like a full-time thing because people started paying me for videos. Then I ended up creating a video production company. And that's what I do today, is video production. But I was able to go full swing into work probably a year after getting out of the hospital. I was able to work full-time basically. There were periods when I would work like full 40, even 50-hour weeks, like even 6, 7, 8 months after the hospital, but I wouldn't be able to sustain that. I would have the adjustment periods after. And Linda, that sounds fantastic. Is that for program participants or YouTube content? So it would be for the program participants, because what I realized with YouTube, it's impossible to fit entire like detailed concepts into 15-minute videos. Like I can only fit so much, and it takes a lot more effort to break these kind of videos down, to break down the science, diagrams, things like that, the graphics. So YouTube will still have tons of content coming out, but the stuff in the program is going to be a lot more in-depth. I was a member in '99. That's awesome, Lisa. Canadian, Wayne Gretzky. I was in the past one simple, talk to myself into taking a 40-minute walk even and return home. This happened several times, but now I can't replicate it. But it was from being 20% functional and unable to take daily walks, some sort of brain retraining. Yeah, so Barbara, talk myself into taking a 40-minute walk. Holy cow, that is way too much. If you have to talk yourself to going for a 40-minute walk, that is way too much. Yeah, you should. If you have to talk yourself and convince yourself and almost go into it fingers crossed hoping that something bad doesn't happen, then that's probably a sign that it's too much for you. So you want to first be able to do stuff within your house. So think of it as in a very small world. It's just your house. For me, it was literally just my room in the hospital. Then it became the room and the cafeteria, and the showers. Then the staying within the hospital. I had to walk around the hospital. Then hospital, and then be able to go outside. Then be able to step outside for breaks, to being able to go home for one day. They would let me out and see how I was doing. So you got to very slowly increase that activity. So I would focus on doing whatever you can within your house. If you want to go outside, you could absolutely go outside, but you don't have to go for like a 40-minute walk. You could go for Just go outside in your backyard for 5 minutes, just kind of pace around, things like that. And it's always better, YouTube video about this, so this might be beneficial for you to watch, but it's always better to increase duration versus intensity. But you also want to slowly increase the duration. So don't just jump to 40 minutes, go for 5 minutes. Do that for about a week, then 10 minutes, do that for a week, then 15 minutes, do that for a week. And even then, maybe on the third week, your body is really having an adjustment period and you have to pull back. Oh yeah, you have to be very gradual with the increase. Any more questions from anybody? If there's no more questions, then we should be good to go here. But next session, I'll probably have it a Zoom call. I know there's one person, I think it was Lisa, who couldn't. I'm not sure if it was Lisa, maybe it was someone, but some people who can't jump on Zoom calls if they can't talk, totally fine, because you can also type in Zoom calls. You can just type something in the chat. But next one will be a Zoom call, so we'll all actually get to meet each other face to face, ideally. I would love to see what you guys look like and talk to you guys in person, at least digitally. So the next call won't be live on Facebook, it will be live on Zoom, but I'll be posting a link for people to join it. Okay, we got one more question here. How do you deal with having good stress? When I do what I love doing, I get too excited and sometimes end up hurting myself because the good stress takes my energy when I'm done with the activity. I don't know if anyone can relate, but my body is very sensitive to stress. Very sensitive with stress. Yeah, even if you truly enjoy doing it, mentally it's great for you, but physically not so good for you at this stage. So I would definitely tone down the activity. For example, drive my car because I have to be aware on the road. You just got to cut down the driving. So even if it's good mentally, may not be good physically. So remember, gradual increases, both mentally, emotionally, and physically. Okay, a couple questions here. We've got 3 minutes. I've had a rather mild case for 16 years, enough to not be able to work, but because of the less stressful lifestyle, I appeared to do okay, even though we know the truth. It was harder than it looked. Yeah, so Beth, we'd have to dive deep into that. We need to really figure out what causes it. It's hard to say. Yeah, it could have been something from a long time ago because you had a mild case for 16 years. I'm currently doing right now one-on-one sessions with someone who has had fatigue since he was like 12 or 13, and it's been getting worse over time, and the symptoms have been getting worse, but it came down to like beliefs, limiting beliefs and things like that. So I would suggest booking a one-to-one call so we can dive deep into that. Yeah, that's what I would suggest, because it's hard to say. Okay, cool, awesome everybody. So I hope everybody got some value out of this. Really appreciate your guys' time, and continue on your way to recovery. Okay, I see your comment, Beth. Yeah, I would suggest booking a call because we'd have to really dive deep into what's going on. But appreciate it, guys. I will talk to you next time. The next time we all do this, it's going to be on a Zoom call. So hope you guys have a great day. Have a great weekend. Continue doing the brain retraining. Remember, you are just one mind shift away from living a life of thriving health. We just need to get things to click and your mind to finally accept, okay, recovery is possible. I am going to recover. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And we just need to have that shift. And one day it will just happen. It almost just like clicks. But it takes a lot of repetition and telling yourself these things. So continue to have positive thoughts, have hope, visualize that ideal future you want. Continue to do the brain retraining. Message me privately, because this is a tricky one to answer. Yeah, it seems like it's going to need a lot more thorough research than looking into. Okay, cheers guys.